Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. On the program this morning, we'll be talking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. A lot to catch up on, as you are aware. We've been bringing it up all week on the program. I guess my mind's in the weekend already. So we'll be talking with him. We do have a couple comments I thought we'd start the program off with. Receive some off the air, so let's start in that direction. First comment. I enjoyed Dr. Coleman this morning, so that was yesterday, and largely agree on what he had to say. And without law enforcement, we have chaos, period. We cannot continue to punish officers, citizens for the actions of a few. And I look forward to the event. The event, of course, is the Support the Police rally, the Unity in the Community rally that Dr. Coleman has been putting on. But this is a new one, Support the Police rally. It's at Wisner Park this Saturday from 1 to 2 p.m. So thank you for that comment. Our next comment. This is in regards, by the way, to Kevin McCarthy. That's the way government is supposed to work. Go back to your civics class, okay? All right. I think if he wasn't doing his job, then he needs to be removed. Nancy Pelosi took that option out when she was in speakership. But McCarthy did the deal in January, and he knew it was there. So if you didn't want to do his job, he should have resigned anyway. Also, my opinion is our Congressman Nick Langworthy, better rethink his statement that he just issued if he wants to get reelected, because we didn't send them there to go along, to get along. Thanks and bye. A couple things to dissect there, and thank you for the comments. I did not see the congressman's statement. It wasn't a statement. He did different statements for different news outlets, so I'll read one that I got from our friends at the Olean Times Herald in just a second, so you know, so we're on the same page. I understand, and I've heard from a lot of people off the air, the same mindset. We're not just there to go along to get along. I understand that, and I don't. Maybe I didn't make it as clear as I perhaps thought I did, but I understand the frustration with McCarthy. I understand the frustration with the CR, the continuing resolution. What I am saying, and I'll continue to reiterate it, is that this was not the time. Now, I did receive a very good comment that said, well, when is the time? Is there ever a good time to cut spending? Because that's always the excuse they use. And I couldn't agree more. That is always the excuse. In this situation, coming up to such a big year next year, such a really a vital, I know every year they say it's the biggest election of our lifetime, but what is a major election, is now the time for 8 House Republicans to kick Kevin McCarthy out by joining with the Democrats? That's the question I ask. And please feel free. That person obviously disagreed with me, though I the civics class, I don't know if that was necessary, but that's fine. I will say, if you disagree with me, so far I've understood everybody's argument. I think they're very fair arguments. I just don't like that punishment for Kevin McCarthy working with Democrats to pass a continuing resolution. The retaliation for that was working with Democrats to kick Kevin McCarthy out. Because to me, it seems like, if you look at the numbers, the House Democrats get to decide who our speaker is, right? I mean, that's what I guess the takeaway from that would be. So that's the problem that I have with, and I don't like. And now listen, I'll be the first to say it. No matter what Republicans do, the media is going to attack them. Okay, I understand that. So we can't be wimpy, for lack of a better term, because we're scared what the media is going to do. But what I will say is you need to prepare yourself because of what has happened. And I have probably 10 articles stating that the House is in chaos. Republicans can't govern. They can't get anything done. And they even kind of rub it in Republicans' face by saying, look, they can't even do a thorough impeachment inquiry because of this until they figure out who's going to be the speaker. So again, I get the statement that there's never a good time. That wasn't from this person specifically, but from someone else. I get the idea that there's never a good time is what we're always told to cut spending. I just feel, and normally I would agree 100%. I'd say we've got to do it right this instant. We got to cut now. In this scenario, I just don't think it benefits Republicans to depend on Democrats to kick out a speaker at what is coming on a very, very, very important time for this country. But please keep those comments coming in. I like when people agree, but I also like when people disagree, so we can have this conversation. That's what this show's all about. Your thoughts, your opinions, and having the conversation. So let me take a short break. When we come back, we'll tell you what Congressman Nick Langworthy had to say, because that gentleman, or lady or gentleman, I'm not sure, that viewer was not happy with the congressman's statement. So I will let you know what that is when we come back. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox received a comment during break. Maybe not for Gates. I'm afraid that we've lost election integrity, which will make regaining power nearly impossible. Hope I am wrong. That is a sentiment shared by many. It is something that we've heard a lot about election integrity. I know there's groups and organizations that have been very outspoken on this. So I think that's a fair point. And even, let's say there is election integrity. Let's say the people that believe that are wrong. The fact that there is that much concern goes to speak to larger issues. Though I believe when you look at New York, when you have, the mail-in ballots that we voted against, no questions asked, just here's your mail. I can understand where there's at least this perceived question of election integrity. Also, another comment, in my opinion, it has become two parties, conservative and liberal. Yeah. Oh, and there's a good point. We are now getting the wall. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Biden did change some rules. They're going to build a section of the wall at the border that is a really high traffic area. Former President Trump weighed in on that, saying not too little too late, but they almost saying that they realized the huge mistake they've been making, but the damage has been done in so many different ways. But anyway, I know I'm on tangents this morning. So this is what, according to Rick Miller at the Olean Times-Herald, he got a quote from Congressman Nick Langworthy. And just to give you maybe a little background, sometimes a quote or a statement on an issue is released to all media, and that's why you'll see the same quote in different outlets. In this case, when Nick Langworthy talks about Kevin McCarthy, he sent them to various places that maybe asked for them or whatever, or he was doing an interview with them anyway. So the reason I mention this, if you're just joining us, we had a viewer text in and say essentially a statement like, what the congressman made will hurt his reelection chances because we didn't vote him in to go along and get along. So what he said is 95% of our conference voted for the speaker, meaning Kevin McCarthy. Kevin did an incredible job as speaker. Every time you get to the top of the heap, you know there is an expiration date. He also praised McCarthy for being attentive to House Republicans' needs. But he also said, I'm greatly disappointed, this Congressman Nick Langworthy, I'm greatly disappointed at the turn of events. It's not fair. It's not right. I want to see a rules change. This grew out of what was a personal vendetta between McCarthy and Gates. And a lot of people believe that it was a personal vendetta. Kevin McCarthy definitely believing that, saying so in his press conference after the fact. And to Nick Langworthy's point, and I agree that the rules need to be changed, and I'm not the only one. This coming from the New York Post, and please weigh in on this. I would love to hear from you. House GOP must drop any member can move to unseat the speaker rule. However House Republicans settle on their new leader, one thing is a must. The rule that lets a single member call for a floor vote on unseating the speaker has to go. Now, ex-Speaker Kevin McCarthy agreed to the rule back in January in the negotiations for the votes to get his job. You remember that, the negotiations. So this is the rule, to that viewer's point. This is no way to run anything, the Post editorial board says. Unseating the Speaker of the House, second in line to succeed the president, right after the vice president, should require a far more substantial level of discontent. Let's say 10% of the majority members. That would force the rebels to debate the idea among themselves and reach a consensus and a critical mass. They might even, unlike Gaetz this week, pause to consider what comes next if they succeed. And it is, as it is, the House floor is frozen, and this is the point that I keep making about the optics of it. Just think of it from a PR standpoint. A lot of articles about this. As it is, the House floor is frozen from taking on any other business until a new speaker gets installed. Worse, even committee work, like the Biden impeachment inquiry, is hobbled with questionable powers to, for example, subpoena witnesses. No, the next speaker shouldn't be impossible to dispose. No, not at all. But a leader needs some job security to lead effectively. So again, we're having great conversations on this, great back and forth. Please let me know what you think on the issue. We do have to take another short break, so please stay with us. But let me put that contact information up real quick if you want to reach out to me and weigh in on this or any of the other topics. I believe Sheriff Allard should be in shortly. I talked with him the other day, so if you have any questions for him, you can reach me there as well. All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and I want to thank you for joining us. Did you see, we talked about this, oh, my headphone just broke. We talked about this earlier where Nancy Pelosi and now Steny Hoyer were evicted from their special offices. They're now saying that it's Kevin McCarthy that's behind that eviction. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy was behind the decision to kick Representatives Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer out of their Capitol hideaway offices, they're called, one of which the ousted speaker intends to move into, according to a new report. Quote, a lot of mainstream Republicans thought that Democrats would come to McCarthy's aid, maybe a few voting present, when push came to shove, and not to actively help Matt Gaetz. Any chance McCarthy can dig at Pelosi and Democrat leadership, he'll take it. Another quote, this is from Representative Garrett Graves. Look, the deal is that the office that Pelosi is in right now is the office of the preceding speaker. Speaker Pelosi and other Democrats determined that they wanted a new speaker. And it's Kevin McCarthy, so he's getting the office. All right. So here we go. I just thought that was interesting. A little behind the scenes kind of, I don't know, not pettiness, but just interesting what goes on behind the scenes. Okay. This is what I keep mentioning, but CNN reporting, House business is on ice without speaker. Lawmakers and aides arrived for work on Wednesday to find a House of Representatives stuck in freeze frame. A giant blue screen declaring them in recess almost the entire day. Garrett Graves, another quote from Garrett Graves, he's busy, the Louisiana Republican, if you're not familiar with him. The House of Representatives is effectively frozen. We're not able to actively advance legislation. We can't even refer bills to committee. Also up for debate, and this is what I mean by the media rubbing it in at this point, also up for debate is how forcefully House Republicans might continue their impeachment inquiry of President Joe Biden without an elected speaker to back up the subpoenas they want to issue. Aides speculated that committees could technically continue to pursue business with a legislative purpose, but there's no real precedent that applies. And here, and I just read this sentence because this is the word that the media is, the talking points that they're all using. Given the state of chaos, the White House might not have any incentive to cooperate with their subpoenas. So there you are. Now, I will say, and I think this is good news. I've heard people say Jim Jordan would make a great speaker. And now this could go on for weeks, could end relatively quickly, but it is in limbo right now. But a lot of people that I've heard from they'll watch this show or talk to me on the street, they like the idea of Jim Jordan. I also like Steve Scalise. I think Steve Scalise would make a great speaker. They both have announced that they are running for speaker. Now, Scalise probably enters in as the favorite, the odds-on favorite, only because there was talk many years ago that if the House, if the Republicans took the House, that him and McCarthy would be not fighting it out because they're friends, but it would be a question of which one. Then things change and yada, yada, yada. We know McCarthy got it. But now with Steve Scalise, though he does, as you are, I'm sure, well aware, does have some health issues that he's dealing with right now, some cancer treatment. But he has announced formally that he is running for Speaker. It is with a strong sense of responsibility and purpose that I seek the House Republican Conference's nomination for Speaker of the House. And he wrote quite a lengthy letter, but you get the gist. So Steve Scalise now in the running. So I think those are the only two, if I'm not mistaken, that have officially declared that they're running. I could be wrong on that, but that's going to be exciting. I think either way, we are well suited for what lies ahead. Okay, we've got to take a short break. Coming up in just a moment, Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard will be our guest. I want to put up that contact information. If you have any questions, reach out there. And then when we come back, we'll have the sheriff in on the program. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox joining me in the studio this morning. We have Sheriff Jim Allard. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County.
It always is. You were just on last week, so what you been up to?
We've been busy. We had the wine glass.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Another successful wine glass.
Yeah.
And I received your newsletter that you did have a lot going on in September.
We did. It was busy.
But you'd be surprised that's not why I asked you in today. So we've been reading the letters back and forth. It looks like I've got my homework assignments here. Look at that. When you have to use a paper clip, you've got it. That's bad. So there's been some back and forth. Could you maybe explain to us, a layman, what this all means really from the beginning so we can just get our footing?
Right. So Section 78 hearing basically is someone says, whoa, time out. What you did's not legal.
Okay.
Let's have a judge look at it.
Okay.
And until that judge looks at it, you can't enforce it.
Mm-hmm.
I liken it to locks on a door. Locks keep honest people honest.
Yes.
Section 78's keep honest folks honest.
Sure.
And, I know it's been kind of portrayed as me versus the legislature. That's not the case at all. The majority of our county legislature cares deeply about their community.
Of course. And
they try to do what's right for Steuben County. I wish I could say it was the entire legislature, but
Right.
most of them do. The resolution they passed two resolutions. One was a local law. One was a resolution. One resolution would require me to buy millions of dollars of personal liability insurance.
Wow.
And it would be in effect to cover not just me, because when I get sued as sheriff, it's not because of what I did.
Right.
It's
The
because of what
So-
any person that works in the office did.
Sure.
And I get named in it, the county gets named in it, and that's a lot of time people's vehicle to get to the deep pockets of the county.
Mm-hmm.
For me to purchase this insurance, it would probably cost more than what my salary is
Right.
per year to purchase it.
Right.
But also, this is something that's never been done in the state of New York. We did a survey across sheriffs and district attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
There is no county that's attempted this in the state of New York under this law. And I think it's important for people to understand that our legislature enacted a resolution that has never been done anywhere else in the state of New York at any time that we can find.
Right.
The law they used is a very old law. It has more to do with surety bonds for, say, treasurers,
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Never been perverted into this kind of use.
No.
So when this was presented to me on a Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
it was never on a public agenda that this was going to resolution the next Monday.
Right.
That's how it was presented to me. So I reached out to the attorneys with the Sheriff's Association. I reached out to my own personal attorney, and I said, I don't know what's going on here,
Right.
but this would appear to be something that's not in line with lawful authority.
Right.
And they did the research, and they said, no, there's nothing in the law that
No
gives them
precedent.
the ability to do that. So the only vehicle I have for that is a Section 78, which is what we did. The indemnity one, that again, isn't, to our knowledge, isn't based on any actual causational factor, but based on a series of misinformation relayed to the legislature about me
Okay.
by certain members. So, again, it was done without transparency. I think I counted, if you look on the county agenda in the minutes and the public agenda, count how many times in the last 2 months the legislature has been in executive session with no minutes attached.
And that's been, I think, maybe the biggest issue, because when we first started bringing this up, we've had just an outpouring of support for you, and also an anger that we as a public have had not only no say in it, we knew
Right.
nothing about it until essentially it was too late.
Correct. And you know, I can't speak to what the intention was there. I can't speak to
Right.
that. I can tell you that, you know, in law enforcement, when we do training, we say the biggest predictor of future performance is past performance.
Sure.
And the biggest predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Right.
If you look at statements that have been made about me by certain members of the legislature over the last 3 years, you can see a prediction of this coming. And if you look at the performance that we've had at the sheriff's office over the last 7 years, obviously it's not in accordance with things that have been said about me.
Sure.
So, once again, I'm left in a position where not only do I have to protect myself and my family,
Of
because
course.
these are huge financial impact issues, but I also have to protect the office of sheriff
Right.
moving forward. I'm a steward of the office of sheriff.
Right.
And I've always looked at it from that position that whatever I do that makes the office better, I pass on to the next person. The last thing I want to do is weaken that office or make it less effective and then pass that on to the next person.
Right.
I think when you look at our political system across the board, that's why there's such an erosion of trust and confidence in our political system, because people haven't taken that stewardship seriously. And I take it very seriously.
And I'm gonna use a term here, and I don't want to speak for you, of course. So I'm saying this by myself as the host of this program. But to me, I don't understand what the end game is here. And if you recall, quite a few years ago, there was a lot of pushback by Republicans, and rightfully so, against the defund the police movement. And I don't see how that is much different than what is going on here.
It's funny. I talked to a friend of mine yesterday who's retired from NYPD and still lives in New York City. And he was talking to me about the effect of taking away qualified immunity on the New York City Police Department.
Right.
That basically there's no, in his view, no proactive policing going on because you can get sued. And
Of
you
course.
have to cover yourself.
You've got to look out for number one at some point.
And he said, you know, down there, just to have an attorney on retainer is $25,000 a year.
Wow.
And should you go to trial, it's another $50,000 at least. He said, what police officer that's making $60,000 a year
Right.
can afford that?
Yeah.
So all they're doing, in his view, again, these aren't my words, this is his view, they're only doing what they're ordered to do.
Right.
Period.
Right.
The deputies already put out a letter saying, hey, we're still going to enforce the law because people were concerned.
Yeah, of course they were.
What does this mean for our law enforcement in Steuben County?
At a time when we've talked so much about recruitment, you know, I mean, it's been a constant. And then to do this, to try to essentially hurt qualified people,
Right.
it just makes no sense. And I'm trying, that's why I'm so glad that you could come on, because I'm trying to understand this. And I think many people that have reached out are trying to understand this as well, because I don't know if people realize in New York State and Steuben County specifically, we have a lot of major issues going on, like anywhere. It's not the best time.
You read my newsletter.
I read your newsletter,
Yeah.
and this is not a time for, in my opinion, to essentially attack the sheriff's office.
Well, I don't think there's
Those are
ever-
my words, by the way.
I appreciate that. And again, I just want to take a moment and say how much I appreciate, how much it's meant to me and my family, the outpouring of support we've had.
Oh, of course.
I've had folks that I haven't talked to in 15 years calling up going, hey, we're behind you.
Mm-hmm.
We see what's going on. It's transparent. Hang in there. We want you as our sheriff. Don't go anywhere.
Right.
And I've actually had employees come in and say, are you going to stay or are they going to chase you out?
Yeah.
And no, I'm here.
Good.
I'm here and I'm running next year. You don't have to worry.
Good.
I'm not going anywhere. I've spent a career facing down people that wanted to hurt others.
Nothing new.
Nothing new for me.
You're ready for the fight.
Yeah.
I will say, before we go to break, because of what's happening, you're probably going to get the most people ever for Dr. Coleman's rallies. The Support the Police rally
That
at
will
Wisner
make
Park.
Dr. Coleman very happy.
Yes, exactly. So let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. We're being joined by Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Jim, you know, it's interesting because I mentioned at the beginning that you sent out the newsletter, and obviously the numbers are just troubling of what you're dealing with in the sheriff's office. So excuse me if I get a little worked up when we talk about the issues that because I understand the importance of the office. And again, I want to point to the fact that so many people have so many questions on this.
Right.
And they've been reaching out to me saying, you know, I don't even know if it's necessarily some in support of you or against you. It's just what is going on.
Right. And that's one of the biggest issues is there's no transparency to this.
Right. From the beginning.
Yeah.
It was one of those breaking stories that came out of nowhere for the majority, I would assume, of the viewers.
Yep.
So what did it mean to you? Because I know this must have troubled you, knowing you, that to be forced to go down this avenue.
So having been a police officer for 35 years, I tend to make jokes about the most serious things.
Right, yes, of course.
And you know that about me.
Yes.
I find humor in almost everything, and this one's difficult to find the humor in.
Yeah.
So what this did was basically subject me and my family to all kinds of rumors and innuendos and
the innuendos is what bothered me a lot because it's very easy to, and I'm speaking for myself, but when you read some of the letters that have come back and forth and then people have seen it circulated through the media, it raises questions for people because there's no substance. Does that
Correct.
Basically the definition of an innuendo, but and the problem is I know your hands are, I'm sure, tied on some of this stuff as the kind of the process unfolds.
Correct. Yeah. And I don't want to inappropriately affect the process.
Right, exactly.
I want to make sure that it's clean and everything we do is clean and transparent at the sheriff's office. Every deputy has a body cam. There's I don't know how many, almost 100 cameras in the jail. Everything we do is transparent.
Right.
And I'm a big believer in process. I have a great belief in the criminal justice system and the courts, and that the truth, when the light of day hits situations like this, the truth comes out.
Exactly.
And all will be vindicated. I have a great belief in that. I still believe in the system. This has affected my family, obviously. They're worried about the stress that I'm under because of it. I think the thing that bothers me the most is the complete disrespect and ingratitude that I feel from this public display.
You've got to take it personal.
Well, look at where the sheriff's office was and where it is now.
Exactly.
It's not by accident that I just got a text yesterday from one of our local fire chiefs about a deputy helping a person. It was an elderly person on a scooter that had fallen over, that the scooter had flipped. He felt the need to reach out and tell me how awesome the deputy was because he got right out and helped that person get upright, and without his help, they wouldn't have been able to treat that person.
Wow.
Those are the things that are important to me.
Right.
When I see our SWAT team perform in an outstanding fashion and save lives, that's what's important to me. When I see our EMT deputies save a life and then have that person come back from strong after surgery with tears in his eyes because they saved his life, that's what's important to me. Political sideshow is not that's not important to me. I'm not at that point in my career. And I've never been a politician. Before I ran for sheriff, I had 3 different people tell me, Jim, you're too honest.
Don't do it.
Seriously, you're too honest to run for office. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Because it's you're not a person that compromises your integrity.
Right.
And, perhaps that's what we're seeing. I don't know. But I take what I do very seriously. I am committed. The only reason I'm doing this job is because I think it's the right thing to do for the citizens of Steuben County, because I've had a great career. What I'm doing now is giving back. And to see this complete lack of respect for what we've achieved and ingratitude for what the professionalism that our men and women display every day, that's the most troubling for me. That's the part that really hurts.
And what's it done for morale in your office?
It's obviously with the letter from the Deputies Association, it's affected them.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of issues. I can't remember the general's name. Had a great quote about morale. He said 3 things determine morale in any agency. Do you have an important job to do? Do you have the tools and the training to do it? And do you have the support of those in government who direct you to do it?
Yeah.
If you have those 3 things, you're going to have morale. If you take one of those legs away, you're going to take away morale.
That's discouraging.
So our deputies and correction officers and court security officers and school resource officers and navigation patrol deputies are all very professional. And we've been very fortunate since I've been sheriff. We've been fortunate enough to, I believe we're up to 16 lateral transfers in from other agencies.
Oh, wow.
Even though we're the lowest paid in the region, they've come in to be part of our culture. I've been very fortunate with that, and I say that with great pride.
Yeah.
So our folks are professional. They'll do their job professionally.
Of course.
But they're waiting to see how this turns out, because, again, this could affect the office of sheriff.
Of course.
From, if this goes through, any legislature could put a price tag to run for office.
And it just, I know I keep saying, but I hate the fact that it seems like we're kicking the sheriff's office when they're down. With the, like I said, we've had morale, retention's been an issue. The list can go on and on. And I've got to take a short break, but I know you work so closely with other offices and other police forces. What has their reaction been?
Every chief that's reached out to me in Steuben County that's reached out to me about this has been, what can we do to help?
Yeah,
this is ridiculous. What can we do to help?
That's great.
And I've had past chiefs reach out to me. I had a past chief that's a friend of mine say, they're lucky to have you.
Yeah.
And don't forget, you're doing this because you want to, not because you have to.
Right.
And it's really, to hear that support, it makes a big difference for me, because, again, you get in that bubble of negativity and
that's what I mean.
Toxicity that is what's going on at the county level right now. It's easy to forget how many folks you've impacted along the way.
Of course. I have a feeling you're going to run a heck of a campaign next year. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Akam, and we are being joined by Sheriff Jim Allard. So how nice was that letter from the New York State Sheriff's Association?
That was very reaffirming.
Yeah.
And again, when you're, and anybody who has been the subject of this kind of action knows, at some point in time you start going, well, geez, am I wrong?
Yeah.
You start to
it's
have
like
self-doubt.
Gaslighting, right? Isn't that what they call it?
Yeah.
Everybody misuses that word, but that's actually what it is.
It's a popular word.
Yeah.
You start having self-doubt, and then when you reach out to folks like Peter Kehoe, sorry, Peter. Peter Kehoe has been doing this for over 50 years and has seen pretty much everything that you could have in connection with the office of sheriff, comes out and says, this is unprecedented.
Right.
This is unreal. It helps you reaffirm.
And I loved how we opened it, because it almost felt like a rallying cry that the Office of Sheriff in New York is unique, for the sheriff is the only law enforcement officer who is not appointed by some other politician. And then later, he's even using all caps. He's fired up. I love it. Yes. But even saying that they will suspend the sheriff that you elected, meaning me and everybody that voted for you. And something that and I don't want to keep belaboring this, but we had no say in any of this as the people that elected you. And I think that's what's frustrating for people that maybe aren't even aware of what's going on, know just enough to say, wait a minute, this is something really unique, because we should have some say in this.
Correct. And that's, I think there's a lot of confusion about what the role of sheriff is,
Right.
and what the office of sheriff is. The sheriff is a county official,
Mm-hmm.
elected by the people.
Right.
So the legislature is here
Mm-hmm.
with the manager and all of that. Over here sits the district attorney,
Right.
the county clerk,
Mhm.
and the sheriff is independently elected county officials.
Right.
So we're still part of county government,
Right.
but we answer directly to the people. We don't answer directly to the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of this consternation comes. I think that a lot of this issue arises from an attempt to change that.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the county, and I know you work so well with the county and the
I
office
do.
building. What has their reaction been, without naming specifics, or I don't know if this is a fair question, but I know that you've worked so well with them, just
Mhm.
like with the other offices.
I've had several county department heads
Mm-hmm.
reach out in support,
Yeah.
in condemnation of what's going on. And obviously, I can't name them because
Right,
they're
of course.
appointed by the legislature.
Right. Right.
But the support has been good. Our mantra has always been, when another county official calls and needs assistance,
Mhm.
it's, we're here to help. What do you need?
Right.
I think if you talk to the commissioner of social services, she'll tell you that our answer is always, how can we help?
Mm-hmm.
During the pandemic, our answer was, how can we help?
Exactly.
How can we make this better?
That's what I mean.
So across the board,
Think
I
of
don't-
how much you did during the pandemic. Speaking of that,
yeah.
not you.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Our
I'm not
folks.
just doing this. The whole office. I
Our
remember
deputies
that
and
time.
corrections officers supported public health more than any other county sheriff's office in New York State, and I know this from surveys.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just so frustrating. I can only imagine how you feel. So, what's the future on this? What's the time frame? Is there any information?
There is a time frame.
Okay.
So we filed last Thursday
Mhm.
our Article 78. On Friday, it was assigned to a state Supreme Court justice,
Okay.
Justice Cook, out of Yates County.
Oh, okay.
On Monday, he issued the stay. He issued a temporary restraining order, it's called,
Okay.
and an order to show cause.
Yeah.
So I believe it's November 2nd. By November 2nd, the county can reply to our petition.
Mm-hmm.
And November 7th, I believe I've got my dates right, November 7th, we reply or rebut their reply. And then November 9th would be the hearing.
Oh my goodness, that's a busy time.
Yeah, yeah.
Election
yeah.
day, right in the middle,
I know,
November 7th.
I know.
We got to take another short break. Boy, this is going fast. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We're being joined by Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. So the letter came out Monday. We brought it up on the program Tuesday because it was after the program. What was the lead up to that letter? What was it that made you feel like you had to release that?
Well, I felt a responsibility to the citizens of Steuben County
Right.
to inform them this is what your county legislature is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't want people to think I'm suing the county,
Right.
because I'm not. All I'm doing is trying to keep the county honest and enjoin these two resolutions that, we believe one was done unlawfully and the other one was done in bad faith.
Right.
So I felt like, because there has not been transparency with any of this,
No.
that folks deserved an explanation of what's going on.
I agree.
And I meet with town boards and groups across the county to explain what it is we do. I'm all about transparency, and our office is all about transparency, and we're so invested in providing the very best possible public service. We know we're servants to
Right.
the public. I embrace that.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was, let's get this information out there so that folks don't misunderstand what's going on here. I'm not trying to get a big payout from the county to ride off into the sunset.
Right.
What I'm trying to do is protect myself, my family, in the office of sheriff against what I believe to be unlawful acts.
Right. And you mentioned it needed an explanation, and I couldn't agree more. And I don't feel like the follow-up letters, this is my words, not yours, the follow-up letters explain, I think, back to something we were talking about earlier, just raised more questions with the innuendo. So that's why, again, I'm so glad you could be on the program. And speaking to your point about transparency, you've always been great on this show and back on the radio station days. And I can't say that Schramm's great, but I can't say that about everybody, politically speaking, that would be willing to give up sometimes an hour of your time to talk about the Wine Glass Marathon and whatever else I bring up. But so that's just me saying those points that I felt like I should say. Before we go, because we're almost out of time, which is unbelievable. I got a couple last questions. Let me see which ones I pointed at. I will offer this up. If anybody wants to contact me and disagree, I would love to have you on the program. I just don't understand. I am saying this as a matter of fact that it just reeks of defunding the police in a different name. And it bothers me so much. And that's why the letter was so shocking when I first read it. How long had you seen that coming, or was it completely out of left field, or were you starting to read the writing on the wall?
The resolution for the insurance was completely out of left field.
Okay.
That was, like you say, I got notified on a Tuesday. It was being voted on next Monday.
Wow.
Boom. And the indemnification, the county has threatened that for the last 3 years.
Yeah, so that was nothing.
Yeah. And I say the county. A certain member of the legislature
Gotcha.
has threatened that for the past 3 years.
Did you ever? So you started to hear about it. Did you ever imagine it would pass?
No, I didn't.
I guess that I when I first saw the letter, I thought, well, maybe he's going to say, they ended up making the right decision, and then to find out they made the complete wrong decision. In my opinion, was what surprised me, I guess, the most. And that's why, again, I was talking off the air. It probably wasn't the most exciting for viewers to sit here and watch me read a letter.
Right.
But then to see the outpouring from it, there's obviously a passion about this. So I guess as we wrap up, how can we help? Because we always talk about the community.
Right.
Is there anything that the people that are out here frustrated and want to know more or whatever, how can they help?
Make your voices heard.
Yeah.
Demand transparency.
Yeah. Pretty simple.
Contact, yeah. And be so. If we don't pay attention to what happens in our local governments, as you well know as a town councilman,
Yep.
we give them the opportunity